Alright, so just so you guys can see it, I'll open up the carb cheater app here. It's going to auto connect. There we go. So we're cruising down the road okay. Carb cheater is doing some compensation here as we're going up and down hills, but we're at high vacuum right now. And so if I toe into it, see vacuum dropping. But it never richened up. So it's like the power valve circuit or something is going on, but it's not good. Oh boy, she's doing that new thing. That's pretty leanus to geenus into the power there, into the high load, and that's not what you want. That's how you put a hole in a piston real fast. So I'll start a log file here so we can look at this. We'll shift into third here, and then we'll load the engine. Oh, we're probably gonna get pulled over. Oh boy. Oh, well, at least that's not me today. Well, at least not yet. Probably not the best place next to the jail to be doing over the speed limit, but I saw something cool that we're going to go look at while we try and figure out what's going on with all this. Ta-da! It's auction time of year, and last year I accidentally bought 3 tractors at this auction, so hopefully I don't accidentally buy any more this year. Let's look at this log file here and see what's going on, because this is a new thing. It was not doing this yesterday, and I have a few theories, but let's take a look at the data and see what we can see. You definitely can't feel it in the gas pedal, so if you think, well, I just know how to tune, you wouldn't notice this. You'd put a hole in your piston and you'd be done, especially in a car like this where I'm always hot rodding around like kind of like a hooligan. All right, so we took that log file. We're gonna hit mode, and so we can see our data logs here. Cool. I want to graph this log file, so I believe got shaky hands there from almost getting pulled over. It should be the correct log file where we went way lean. So maybe I can flip the orientation here. All right. So in our carb cheater app here, you can see the blue is our vacuum. So you can think of that as our load. And look in the middle. Look how lean that was. You should see something down around 12.5, 13 under load. And I mean, if you look at the graph here, and I can do this, we can tap on certain points. I mean, we're way up at like 15 at full load. So that's not good. Now, as they say, lean is mean, but you know, to a degree, okay? When we're getting up to like 15 to 1 AFR when we're at heavy load, that is not what you want, and that is how you put a hole in a piston. So there's really 3 things that could be doing this, okay? There's either a clogged fuel filter or dirty fuel filter. Our fuel pump is having an issue, or our needle and seat, something there, we're not getting adequate fuel supply, or our power valve is petrified, seized, something's going on with it, because it looks like on the enrichment circuit there is when, you know, the AFR is good, and then it goes in the toilet when it should richen up from the power valve. I wonder if some of these start. This is something I totally shouldn't do because the jail is right back here, but I don't know, if you make it obvious that you're doing something, you can't be up to no good, right? Now these all just showed up here the other day, and some of them are really nice. A lot of them are really nice, so I have a feeling some fella passed away, and that's just what happens out here in middle of nowhere, Iowa. You know, someone has all these passes away, the family doesn't want anything to do with them, and they all go to auction. But this is the poor boy special, the stuff that I like to buy. So it looks like, you know, there's no keys. It's got fuel in it. Be nice to know if it ran before the auction, because I'm definitely not going to buy it. Pop up here, push in the clutch. Oh, there's a can on the exhaust. Let's try again. Oh, that's pretty encouraging. That's going to be really hard to not bid on. Honestly, as are a lot of these. This will probably go for like $300, $400. I'm not even kidding. All right. So enough of that playing around over here by the jail, doing mischief. Back to what we were trying to figure out. Oh, don't forget our can. I want to get reined in and ruined. Now, like I said, there's a lot of different things this could be, but personally, I think it's probably the power valve. I have 70,000 miles on this car since I started driving it back in 2020 or so. And, you know, power valves, they just get hard, and this seems like the power valve is petrified, and this is right before it cracks and starts flooding. It'll do stuff like this. So, but just on the off chance, I got some stuff in here from going to Illinois the other day to our plant that I work at, and I'm gonna make something. Conveniently, I just had my work tools and some hose and then this industrial gauge, but it's a 30 PSI gauge, so that's probably gonna work out pretty good for a carbureted car. So this is gonna work out all too convenient. This apparatus here, I think I'm gonna tee in right where this ball valve is, and folks ask me about it a lot. Basically, in 2020, when I put the car together, I simply that day did not have a piece of fuel line that was the correct length. So anyway, that was my little coupler to make two junk pieces of fuel line work, and I've just never changed it. Also, everyone asks about the chain and turnbuckle. Now, this is an old school Z-bar car, and when you are standing on it, the motor mounts are not broken on the Maverick, okay? When you stand on it really hard, that engine twists, and if you try and shift into the next gear, this is all mechanical linkage. If that engine's torqued, it'll bind all that up. And so this stops it from being able to bind, and it works pretty good, but there you go. That's what's going on there. Now let me fire up the Maverick here and I'll show you another nifty little trick. Now, this is not the nifty little trick, but everyone gets a kick out of how we start up the Maverick here. So this is the start button. Makes sense. That's what normal people would do, right? Obviously a mechanical switch for the fan. So I'll show you a nifty little trick here. If you got a pair of needle nose vice grips, put some rubber tube on the end. And if you want to work on the carburetor and not spill fuel everywhere, I could use the ball valve, but technically I'm going to remove it. So I'm going to clamp just conveniently behind it, and now fuel will not get to the carburetor. And we'll see this thing lean out here on our air-fuel ratio. Probably take a while. This is actually a pretty efficient engine. You can see it going there. And what's interesting is all that's actually changing is the fuel level in the bowls. And you can see the direct relationship, how that alters the air-fuel ratio. Are you about done yet? I don't know how that thing's still running, frankly. Sounds like it's running on 2 cylinders. Carb cheater's got some pretty good range on it. 20. Okay. Suffice it to say, the fuel line is not pressurized, and there's almost no fuel in this thing, so we're not fixing to damage anything today. All right, and as you can see, super convenient. There's a few little dribblers there, but nothing to be worried about. Kind of happens with age anyway. All right, there's our little T-fitting, and just to show you what this does, I'm going to stand out of the way. There you go. That's the idea behind how that works. I'm not sure that was the smartest thing to do on a hot engine bay, but you get the idea. Pretty handy little setup. All right, I've been politely but firmly asked to leave. They were worried about me being here until they saw what I was doing. They're like, oh, he's just an insane guy, that's fine. But I was gonna fire it off and check the float height, but we're just gonna hit the road here. I got this snaked through the cowl induction hood. I'm gonna bring it right in the window of the car so we can look at it while we're driving, because, you know, that above the exhaust, that's fine. All right, a little leak check action here, because, you know, this is super safe. Oh, that's not good. Unless I got a big leak under the hood. Interesting. Kind of suspicious. I don't know if my gauge doesn't work or what. I can't blow on it, and I can see myself in the camera though. I'm not. Are we doing gauge troubleshooting now? For God's sake. I'm gonna fire up the car and see if this line throws gasoline everywhere. Mildly hilarious. I'm glad I didn't use that at a plant. Oh yeah, fuel's definitely coming out. How do I shut this off? Too many switches. Right on my foot. Probably should have seen that coming. Fuel pressure doesn't look that great. Oh, here we are. We have to leave. All right, well, I've had warning number 2, so hopefully we don't see warning number 3. Now, I'm pretty suspicious of this gauge here. It's only reading, well, actually it's got this little nipple you're supposed to cut off. It's supposed to equalize the pressure, question mark. All right, we're just making a mess. Let's just, oh hey, that fixed it though. Check it out, now it works. That's pretty gross. All right, this is not going the way I thought it might. You ever wondered why automotive fuel pressure gauges never work right? It's because they don't have that little nipple to equalize pressure. You just saw we clipped the nipple off, which is what you're supposed to do with these industrial gauges, and now fuel pressure is reading correctly. So we're just full of spontaneous tech tips today, apparently. Side note, that fuel pressure is looking pretty good, so I'm thinking that we still got a power valve problem. We're gonna see. I'll put it under a load here, and you know, if the fuel pump's doing its job at load, you know, it's a little bit more demand. If the fuel pressure stays relatively the same, you know, that means we don't have a problem with any of that. So our air-fuel ratio is actually doing pretty good here. Carb cheater's doing its job compensating. We have good pressure, so I'm just gonna roll into it. And fuel pressure did not move. All right, so suffice it to say, I don't think fuel pressure is our issue. Aside from the fact there's a bunch of whatever this gauge oil is all over me and all over my beautiful interior now. That's that. Everything, again, you know, when we're just idling or at light load, everything's good. Fuel pressure is good. Now I bet you we'll come back here. Watch, should go really high when this heat soaks. Kind of struggling with my words there, but I also almost went to jail twice. So, you know, as to be expected. Also, I forgot to mention I've been talking about this carb cheater thing, and most folks that follow me know what it is at this point, but if you don't, I'll leave the website right here. I'm the programmer and developer myself, and Joe does the circuitry. Anyway, you know, we developed carb cheater. It's ours. We have a little patent on it. There's a little patent number. And so if you're interested in it, you know, you can check that out. That's what we're basically, you know, I've been able to use to figure out what's going on here with the Maverick. And, you know, works good for a myriad of different vehicles. But with that, let's get back to what we're doing. But yeah, carb cheater, pretty neat. It's the thing I always wish existed. Being a programmer, I just made it myself. It made sense to me. Now the next thing you can do is check the float height. Now I've already done that because I didn't want you guys to sit through me doing that. We all know if you're here, more than likely you know how to check float height and set all that up. But with carb cheater and the wideband, you know, I kind of know what my normal jetting looks like running down the road. You know, my main jets, and I know what my enrichment circuit looks like, and the enrichment circuit is what started to just, you know, go way lean. Now everything else is correct and normal, and so if we had a float height issue, that's going to phase change your whole fueling curve, okay? And I didn't see that. Just like how you saw when we clamped down the fuel and cut the fuel supply of the bowl, as the fuel in the bowl got lower, that's what caused everything to get leaner. It changes the relationship, the Venturi effect of the carburetor, low pressure area, and all this. Anyway, carburetors are pretty amazing with what they do, but anyway, everything showed me that that wasn't the issue, and I've checked it and it isn't. So here we are. Pretty darn sure we're in power valve land at this point. So at this point, I'm gonna have to pull at least the front float ball off the carb. I'm gonna try and do it everything right there if I can get away with it. So obviously we're doing our whole clamp the fuel line off, so the bowl is gonna be empty and not cause a mess, even though it still will to some degree. Getting the float bowl off here, you know, if it does end up being the power valve, I really can't be too mad because this car's been together for 70,000 miles, 5 years. It's done pretty well. I mean, wouldn't Edelbrock have had the same problem? No, it wouldn't have. But, you know, we're just working with what we got at the moment. A little bit of sizzle action, but we're not on fire, so that's good. The Jetson power valve body in here are nice and discolored from years of forced labor. I'll get the metering block popped off here. I didn't want to unless the power valve was kind of janko, but there we go. It seems like oh, there we go. Hopefully I didn't just fix it, but it seems like the diaphragm is not doing great. And removing a metering block, you never want to get in here all tomfoolery like. You know, I just kind of like to come in here, find just a little wiggle point. I don't like to go into these portholes either. And generally, if it's been assembled in the last 30 years, it'll just come apart. Just like that. Now when you remove your metering block, this cavity where the back of the power valve resides, it is a vacuum chamber. It should not be wet whatsoever. And you can see that it is. And likewise, when you look at the power valve itself, it is damp. So there's also a good chance it was petrified and then I just broke the diaphragm and put some fuel in there. But it's hard to say, but suffice it to say, it's not doing its job correctly. Now this is super important. I really want you to appreciate it. A lot of people, now I've loosened this already and broke it loose. A lot of people will say, oh, it's leaking or has a problem because, wait for it, there's 2 gaskets on it, and when they shear, I'm telling you, they look absolutely perfect. This is 1 gasket, and if you try and just use one side of this, it will absolutely 100% leak. So that is not the issue. That is what it looks like when it's disassembled and you need a new gasket. Well, unfortunately, like a complete gomer, and I'm always filming my own stuff, I always wish I had 3 hands. But if you see what's going on here, yeah, not good. I ended up dropping the metering block on the ground, and then I could hear it rattling around, and I had dislodged the emulsion tube in the carb. And the only way to get to that is to remove the metering block plug. So these are pretty much kind of a pain to remove and not really a way to reuse them. Basically, you drill a hole in them, and then I just tap them and put this specific screw in when I do remove them, so obviously that's threaded in, and then I can just turn the nut and it will draw out the plug. So if I can do this all with one hand, last time I was doing stuff with one hand, it didn't go so well, so you can kind of see it there. And I've since hammered, you can see the little brass guy, I've since hammered that emulsion tube back into place. So, you know, that's exciting. Not sure what I'm going to do about that. So this is definitely things I never thought I'd use a 3D printer for, and yes, I'm sitting on the floor. I could be sitting up there, but I'm not because, I don't know, I'm a weird dude. But anyway, I ordered a core plug, or a block plug rather, for this metering block, but I have to drive this car to work, and I need to do something now, because to get these out, you know, you obviously have to destroy them. So I've never tried to 3D print something like this, but if it works for a couple days, that's all it needs to do. If you remember when I made the lawnmower adapter, I made it on that poor guy back there, and that's old-timey antiquated stuff. This thing is like 1,000,000 miles a second. What takes that thing 30 some hours takes this like 3 hours. It's incredibly fast. One of the Bamboo Lab P1S, terrible name, because obviously that sounds like something else, but we're just going to ignore that. What are you doing? Hey, you want to show everyone?
I was asking you, did you hear me yell swing.
No, not really.
I said, if I made coffee, would you sit on the swing chair with me and drink it?
Yes, I would. All right. All right, here it goes. All 2 minutes of it. Look at all this nice work you did. All right, mildly hilarious here. Do I even take the build plate out? Just pop those little guys out and there you go. All right, and there's our plug. I'll tap it into place. It looks like it's a good fit where it's going to seal, and then when the actual plug comes in, I'll pull it back off and put the correct thing in, but that's printed in PETG, and it does handle fuel pretty good. And if you don't believe me, I'll show you here. Have a look. All right, here we go again. My friends. All right, and there she is, all hammered in, and I'm sure it'll work perfect, and it would probably work perfect forever. I suppose if you're going to be dumb and drop important things on the ground, well, you better at least be creative. All right, I got a new old 10.5 power valve that is still good, and I'll show you how to check that in a moment. But it's a common misconception that folks think that the rating on the power valve somehow pertains to how much fuel it flows. You know, really a power valve, that's just the vacuum rating, where when your engine is below that vacuum, basically then it allows fuel to flow. This is basically seated. When it gets below 10.5, the vacuum force is less than this spring here, and then it opens. And just confirming if you have a good or bad power valve, and this is real cringy, so I don't do this a lot on camera, or ever on camera really. But if you take the diaphragm side of your power valve and suck in on the back side of it, you heard there, I pulled in, it held vacuum, and when I released, oh, this is cringy. Anyway, it released. So if it's a bad diaphragm, you can't do that. So obviously this is a good one, and we're going to drop her in. All right, the moment of truth. The moment I've all been waiting for. Oh, nope, idiot, hang on. That'll probably cause a problem when it runs all the fuel out of the float bowl. All right. Oh boy. Never made carburetor parts out of a 3D printer, at least not on the carburetor itself. Clear prop. Well, it's idling. Should probably make sure I don't got any leaks up there. All right, my friends, I think I'm going to call that a wrap for today. It's dark outside now, so we'll wait till tomorrow. Obviously, we had a few intermissions, some planned, some not planned, but we got through it okay. All right, car shuts down nice. Hard to kill this Maverick, tell you what. And definitely, I'm notorious for this. You always want to take your parts that were bad and get rid of them. Okay, I can't tell you how many times I've taken junk parts off of things and somehow they get blended in with my good parts. All right, a new day has dawned and we can fire up the car and see how we did. Now, remember that thing I said yesterday about not saving old parts, making sure you throw them away? Well, the power valve I put in there as I was getting our fuel gauge and everything, you know, all put away and a normal fuel line put back on, I got to thinking, I'm like, I think I took that out of something like 5 years ago because it wasn't quite working right. So we're going to see when power valves get old, they start to not open at the right point. So I won't be at all surprised. So hopefully we see it open, but I probably should have put this new one in I had, but working on the Maverick, generally I work on a lot of other people's cars. I always put new parts in those. And for my own stuff, I generally just use old parts, you know. Such is the life of a mechanic, I guess. All right, so far so good here. So we're gonna start our data log on Carb Cheater. When it's flashing green there, we're in data log mode. And I'll set you guys up here and we'll see if I can manage to not get a ticket. All right, so let's take a look at our log file here. I'm gonna go to graph data log. I could have named it, but I didn't. You know, it's the 31st today. So there we go, it's gonna graph the file. I'm gonna try and do this with one hand, chaps, but it's kind of difficult, but there you go. So that red line is your air fuel ratio, and you see now it's doing the normal, it blips lean, because you know we got a cool manual transmission here, but when you get hard into it, AFR drops down rich where it's supposed to be. So I think our power valve was the issue, and we indeed fixed it. I got a little crazy there, so I don't see exactly where the power valve came in, but we can confirm that it is indeed richening up like it should. So it's dropping down to 11.5 to 12 range, which is super safe, and it's not gonna blow up. I might even, because I have this, you know, I can play with it and even lean out that power circuit a little bit more. Come on, phone. So pretty cool compared to, let's go to where we were before. Let's see that previous graph. Yeah, what I know is it sure beats that big lean spike there. Super lean into the power, and now we're good and where we're supposed to be. I can dig it. We're back to doing what she's supposed to be doing. And to top it all off, our air fuel ratio cruising down the road is nice and efficient. Carb Cheater's doing its thing to compensate to keep us within that ideal range. You know, carburetor, static metering device, dynamic environment, but Carb Cheater makes up that difference for us. And, you know, I don't know, just makes for a really nice, well-rounded, reliable vehicle. All right, my friends, thanks for coming along with me today and making sure the Maverick doesn't explode. At 70,000 miles here, it'd be a real shame. We're getting awful close to 100,000 miles, and I think we're gonna do it, which would be pretty impressive. Carb Cheater 2.0 and Carb Cheater Lite are available if that's something that interests you. You know, in my case, it probably saved me from putting a hole in the piston of the Maverick. So it's ran the whole time, almost entirely with a Carb Cheater, and you know, it's worked out for me. So with that, my friends, I got like a million other things I gotta do around here. If you have any questions, comments, I'm pretty good at responding to stuff. So if you leave a comment, I'll probably respond. So with that, see you guys for the next one.